Your best idea, the one that could fundamentally change your life, has probably already occurred to you. It came, it went, and now it's gone forever. Most people assume that the hard part is having good ideas. It's not. The hard part is actually building a system that makes sure they survive and build on each other. And by the end of this video, you're going to be able to do exactly that. The fundamental problem we've all faced at some point is that we had this brilliant idea, but when it comes time to actually applying it, we realize, oh my god, it's gone. I've been the same pretty much all through my life, but starting to create content, design apps, build apps, and do all this idea-centric stuff made me realize in a tangible way that I'm leaving so much value on the table. The reason we can't remember ideas like these isn't because we're stupid or lazy or we've got a bad memory. It's just a human thing. Most humans can hold information in their short-term memory for 12 to 30 seconds. And most of us can hold it in long-term memory for a bit longer, depending on how much you think about it or mull over it or remind yourself about it. That's not a lot of time. So as soon as I realized that the false confidence of I'll remember this was completely bullshit, I started to treat my brain as something that is supposed to have ideas, not keep them. I genuinely think learning to work around this flaw, or building a second brain, is one of the best things you can do for your general productivity and your state of mind. And it's a lot easier than you might think. You can very easily fail at building your second brain because you over-engineer them. You cook up 17 Notion databases and 20 automations that make you give up while building it, and even if you do somehow end up coordinating all of that, it never even gets used. So the key idea here is that you don't want to overdo it. A simple Notes app or Notion page or a very simple database is all you need to start keeping track of your ideas. If I was starting right now, I'd just head straight for the simple notes file. It's simple, it's lightweight, and it can handle pretty much everything. There are things like Notion. You can do a lot more with Notion databases, and it integrates well with other tools, but the learning curve is a lot steeper. I don't want this video to be another guide on how to use Notion, but I have a template down below you can use for exactly this purpose. Aside from that, you can go with the simple pen and paper. I still use this when I'm away from my computer or it's late at night and I don't want to disturb my sleep. But the point is, it doesn't matter so much what the database is, rather that you have one. And the goal with this is that whenever you have an idea, just put it in the database. At this point, we're not organizing or evaluating the thoughts, and we don't care if they're good or bad, we're just dumping it. With a system like this, we don't care if an idea is good with it. Volume is what we're aiming for. Because when you're in the moment of having an idea, it's a terrible time to judge it, because your emotions when you're having that idea is not really representative of how you would feel about it 98% of the time. You might think a bad idea you've had is complete gospel, while some random thought you had while on a walk that you didn't think much about might be the best thing you've ever thought of. But when you bring it out into the real world and put it in a database-like system, you give your brain time to both process it in the background and kind of distance yourself from it in a way that you wouldn't have been able to before. By this point, we've got a big bank of ideas sitting in our database. But the problem is that these don't do shit until we use them to move our lives forward. But how do we do that? The mindless idea dump was on purpose. That is where we get our quantity that we're able to eventually filter down into the quality insights. But to make sure this doesn't become a graveyard of random ideas, we need to do some thinking. And this involves a weekly, or at least somewhat regular habit, where you process this inbox. That involves going through each idea systematically and deciding what's worth developing, connecting useful ideas together, and just shamelessly killing the rest. After you filtered out the useless ideas, you want to chuck the good ideas into the place where you keep the rest of your project's information. If you've got a Notion page or a OneDrive folder for a university assignment, and you've had a really good idea related to that, you might want to keep a file in that OneDrive folder specifically for ideas relating to that project. I had this random idea about how the hell Duolingo is so addictive is so good at making you addicted to something that generally isn't that interesting. So I popped it in my database, did a little bit of Googling, and lo and behold, that eventually became the most popular video on my channel. In about 70% of cases, the idea is useless and you should just delete it. But it's like panning it for gold. When you find a good solid couple pieces of gold, the rest of the sediment that you found in the pan and ended up chucking away doesn't even register to you, even though it was 70 to 80% of the real volume. The goal isn't to keep every idea, but to decide what ideas are worth it for you to develop and make the decisions about that in a less emotionally attached state of mind. If you do these things, create a place where you store ideas, make the weekly habit to process those ideas, and strategically move them around and use them in your most important projects and tasks, you'll not only keep more of your ideas, but you'll start having more ideas in a weird and funky way. Single ideas might not seem worth your time in the moment, but when it comes time to write that brief or work on that insert task again, the gradual build-up of ideas over time that you've had will mean that the work's basically halfway done by the time you sit down to start. But if you're a content creator like me, your second brain might need a little bit more. This is why I made this video right here, which is about how I apply this sort of system to my production workflow so that my best ideas never get lost.